Welcome to CF 2.0 Geek Out, where we deep dive into ClickFunnels 2.0 and how to use it to grow your funnel building business.
Hey, I'm Susan.
And I'm Andrea.
Come along with us as we learn and discover how to use the new ClickFunnels and how to make it bend to our will. Hello, everybody. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Susan.
We skipped last week because it was busy and honestly, I wasn't feeling up for it, and we're still waiting for 2.0. But that's okay. We're back. We have some really cool things we're going to talk about today, which I'm excited about. Do you want to kind of intro what we're doing?
Yeah. So I think, you and I were chatting and it's like, okay, 2.0 is not out yet. I think we've squeezed the lemon as far as we possibly could in terms of all the juices that we can derive from what we know and what we're seeing so far. And so I know you and I were chatting about okay, how can we help people prepare for 2.0? And I know if you guys have been watching us, we've talked a lot about, I think they're going to open up the architecture, which gives a lot of room for flexibility in terms of how we organize content. But I think it's going to also put a lot more onus on us to be really intentional about how we give people a way to navigate through our courses and our programs and everything that we're doing. So Susan and I were like, well, we use a really awesome system with our clients to be able to do that. And so we're like, what if we just start teaching or training about those systems? And so that if you do have a current course or any kind of learning experience, you can actually maybe start to use these things and look at your course and apply them, or if you have one that's coming and you use these tools to be able to best be prepared for 2.0. Did I cover it?
Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, so before we get into that though, let us know that you're watching. I know we haven't really been giving you guys warnings or anything for these, so most of you watch these on the replay. That's okay. Let us know that you're here watching. You can put hashtag live down there if you want to, or hashtag replay. But more importantly, give us feedback. If you like what we're going to be talking about today, if you want more of it, if you have questions that you want us to go deeper on something, that is really, really good for us. So, okay, so let's dive into it then. I think first we want to answer the question, because you and I use the terms progress tracking and task tracking all the time, and we're going to be using it a lot in this episode. So I think first let's kind of very plainly define what that is. So if you guys are familiar with, course areas, it doesn't have to be ClickFunnels specifically, because honestly, ClickFunnels doesn't do this very well out of the box. But if you're familiar with other platforms where when someone has gotten to the end of a lesson and it has a button, it might say complete lesson, or I've completed this, or move on to the next one, or mark it complete, or usually it can say any of those things. And you click on it, and then it gives you a little check mark over in your navigation that you have finished it. ClickFunnels has its own version of this. It's more based on time spent on the lesson, which isn't exactly helpful, but that's how they built it to begin with. I'm pretty sure they're going to be fixing a lot of this in 2.0. So it's just keeping track of the progress that people are making through the actual course, through the content. Hey, Richard. And then task tracking, Andrea is definitely more experienced in all this, but what I define task tracking is, for what we do is within each lesson, you might be having actions for people to go and take. So you teach them a little bit and then you want them to go and implement. So you give them these little actions to go and implement what you just taught them. And those are what we call tasks. And we want to be able to track if they have done those tasks sometimes. I don't think it's necessary all the time, but I think in most cases you kind of want to know, because it gives you a really good idea of not just on a lesson level, but within the lesson, how far are they getting? Where are they getting stuck? And so we work a lot within the actual lessons. Now, ClickFunnels 1.0 out of the box does not allow you to do this. So this is why we do custom membership areas, so that we can build in ways of tracking down to a task level what people are doing. So Was that a good, do you feel like that was a good enough explanation
was
of those,
awesome.
Andrea? Would you add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just a shout out to you and Joanne too, is that I think, being able to track this stuff, a lot of times people don't use ClickFunnels for learning experiences because they see things like Thinkific and Teachable and Kajabi and all these places be able to, I'm going to do a giant air quote right now, track progress, right?
Yeah.
Because they simply are able to say mark complete, right. And then you get this whatever.
But with that said, how many of you, I don't know enough of those platforms to be able to answer this definitively, but could there be a situation where you just want to hit that you completed it so you can get to the next thing, but you didn't actually complete it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's, and the difference I think that we're going to be talking about today, it's going to feel really subtle. And when you first listen to it, you might think you're doing the same thing, but we're not. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of those models, what they perpetuate is what I call the info vomit model. So, here's my video. And then when you're done watching the video, hit complete. Well, it didn't give, any really great learning experience. It talks to the head, it talks to the heart, and it talks to the body. And, you get, you help them learn, understand something up here, you help them feel something down here, and then you get them to move, mm-hmm. right? And I think a lot of times in the info vomit model, we just kind of stick up here. I told them the thing, and that's their responsibility to go do the thing, right? And right. I'm not taking any responsibility. I have done my part in info vomiting. All right, good luck, And I think when we're talking about progress today, it very much is trying to get all three legs of the head, the heart, and the body around what you're trying to get them to understand and do.
Yeah, I love that. I love the head, the heart, and the body. That's such a great way of remembering, okay, have I touched on giving them the information, the head part? Okay, I've done that. I've given them the information that they need to do this, but have mm-hmm. I actually made them understand why they need to go and do this and get them really invested in going and doing this thing I'm asking them to do. And that would be the heart, right? And then the body, yes. I like how it's just then just get them to actually go and do it. Give them what they need. It might be motivation. It might be a tool. It might be just an easy, step by step on getting it done, but get them to actually move and go and do it, which is awesome. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So then I think you have a visual, and I will preface this for our audio only future podcast listeners of this episode that I think we'll be able to talk about this without them needing the visual. But if you want to come and see what is being shared on the video version of this, definitely jump into the Facebook group, CF 2.0 Geek Out, and you can watch the video of this episode. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is one of the frameworks that, I think both you and I use this in our, as we're thinking about when we're working with clients or when we're building learning experiences, and we're specifically talking about how do we hold people accountable and how do we get them to do the thing that we're wanting to do. And there's 3 different levels. So the first one is the self-guided, meaning I decide that I have done it. Woohoo! Right? Yeah. Then there's the second one, which is what I call system guided, meaning I have to do something, give the system, meaning the technology space, I have to give it something in order for it to tell me I've done the thing, right? Or seal of approval, or mm-hmm. move on, or open up another area. And then human guided, which is normally in more high touch coaching programs, but this is where the human, the coach, or the person leading the charge is really the one that's my eyes and my brain have seen the thing and I've given it my stamp of approval. Yeah. And there's a huge spectrum here. And there's lots of really cool options when we're in the technology space to know how can we support each one of these levels. But I think a lot of times people don't even think about the different levels. They just think about, again, the most classic one is, here's a video, I mark complete, boop, and then I'm done, which would be a little bit in towards the system. So I think we're going to go through each one of these levels, give some examples of what we do. And then as you're thinking about 2.0 and your current one, it's how do then we say, okay, what might we be able to track? Because again, in 2.0, I think we're going to be able to track a lot more. Okay.
And with that, before you move to the next part, because I know when I was learning about these different levels from Andrea, At first I was thinking like, okay, so we've got self-guided, system-guided, and human-guided. And at first in my brain, I was thinking that was like value ladder. Like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, I've got my DIY version, I've got my done with you version, and I've got my done for you version. But really, your actual program, your actual offer, whatever, the done with you, the done for you could not necessarily done for you, but your course could have the self-guided, system-guided, and human-guided all within that alone. Not everything that you're having them do is going to be self-guided, and not everything is going to be human-guided. So it can range even within a specific product itself. And so I wanted to put that out there because I did not really understand that at first.
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction. And I would say, even like on the human guided, it's a really nice delight factor when you add a human guided stamp of approval on like the apex of a course, right? When it's like, oh my gosh, the leader has actually looked at my thing and said I did it,
Yeah.
So it's like you reserve it just because of, capacity, but it's a really nice delight factor to insert into even a DIY, a fully DIY course.
Yeah. And we're going to go into some examples. So I already have some in my head, so I'll save them for when we get to that point.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let me go here. Okay. So the first one is the self-guided, which is basically, I think I did it. So this is, I think one of the best examples that I know Susan and I both share as participants is, in CF Design School, the very first badge that we get, we have to go out and she gives us a site that we have to replicate. We go out and we replicate the site. Okay. We are completely on our own, right? And it's basically a feedback loop. And I can see literally like, here's the page I developed or designed. Here's the page that it's supposed to look like. So I can see like, does it match, right? And I can decide, yep, I did it. So this is, again, completely on our own. Yes, I can say I did it. It's the biggest thing here is that I have to know, how do I know that I did it is the thing that we want to provide to the person.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's CF Design School from Catherine Jones, in case any of you don't know what we're talking about there.
Yeah. Yep. And so again, going to 2.0 of like, okay, what might this look like? So this is just simple as like, if you do have people go out and do a thing, it's providing it should look like this or another. So for instance, I'm doing one where they're teaching people how to be, I don't know how much I can talk about it, but they're basically teaching people to be a particular type of profession. I think I have to keep it pretty loose because it's not released yet. But so to be a particular type of profession, and it's a very applied science, right? And so it wouldn't be wise when there's training to go out and do it on real people, right? They're not ready. And so in this particular case, we made like case studies, right? And so everybody in the course is going through the exact same case study. And it's kind of a choose your own adventure case study, but it's you have to be able to get to this point during this lesson in the case study. So like make sure you pick the right, parts of the adventure in order to get to this. Once you see this, that you've arrived, right? Yeah. And so again, that's just an example of, okay, I can see the visual on the screen, or I can see the PDF of the replica, or I can, see the symbol that I'm supposed to be finding, or I can see the video, and like mimic myself off of that. It's just something you're giving them to be able to say, okay, how do I know I'm done? Because I'm self-evaluating.
I have one more example for this because it's like, okay, but how do I do that if I don't have anything that like shows them what their end thing, their end product should look like?
Yeah.
You got to get creative. Yeah. So I actually am helping a client right now who has a course teaching people how to learn bookkeeping software, essentially is what it is. A lot more to it than that. But in the beginning, they just really need to learn how to use this software and how to take like clients. So they're becoming bookkeepers. So how to take their bookkeeping clients and take their information, like their bank statements and their clients' information, like stick it all into this software. But again, they can't actually go and get a client in this situation until they have enough knowledge on how it actually works. Otherwise, I mean, they could go and like maybe find a friend or a family member where they're like, can I just learn with you? But you can't like ethically go and like get a bookkeeping client if you don't actually know how to be a bookkeeper yet. There's a lot of different things we can do that sort of with, but this seems like one of those professions where you actually need to like learn before you go and sell your service.
Yes.
And so what we did was we're like, well, why don't we just make some like fake versions of those documents and like what it should look like after they put this information in, so that they can do it, they can test it on like a what we're calling a dummy client, and then they can see like, okay, this is what mine should look like, and this is what mine looks like. Does it look like that? Did I put the information, the same information that's on like the fake documents into the system the same way that the person teaching me just did it, or did I not? So that I think there's just like really cool ways to get creative by giving them a guide on like what it should look like, and so that they can match it up.
Yes. I love that example. That's so perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Cool. All right. So then the next one is, we're moving up the ladder here. And this one is, this is the, the push of the button saying, I did it. Again, this is the most universal, the mark complete, yes, I did it.
Yeah.
I think the one nuance here, and I think, in a lot of the work that we do, and especially the systems that you and Jonah have been able to create and like Dan has done, it's the being able to say like, yes, mark it complete, which is still really valuable in the learning experience. The only thing is that a lot of times it's not clear when I'm actually marking complete from a behavioral standpoint. Mm-hmm. It's more used just as like a bookmark, right? Like, okay, check. Yeah. I've listened to that video. I've read the thing.
I've watched the video. Okay, I'm ready to go watch the next video is kind of what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I fully subscribe to this, but I do have someone who I watch very closely in the organic space. Her name is Jenna Larson, and she usually says, learning is a zero-sum game in business. And I think what she means by that is just learning it alone really doesn't mean anything unless you're actually, again, internalizing it and behaviorally implementing it.
Yeah.
And so I think, this whole mark complete craze, just for the logistics of learning and not for the actual behavioral aspects of learning, is doing everybody a disservice. It's like, stop the mark complete.
I feel like the place, and maybe you have a really great example. If you have a really great example for this ready at the tip of your tongue, like, go for it. I was just going to try to make one up right now.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was just going to say, like, I feel like the place to have a button saying I did it is when the task is not something that they can actually put into the system, and it is not something that they can do like the self-guided, right? Like comparing, but it's more of like maybe out in the world type of task where it's like, well, I had to go and I had to do this. Like, I don't know if it's like going and speaking on a stage is like the end goal of the course. And it's like, go to your mirror and practice this 5 times in the mirror. And that's like not really something you can really put into the system, but you just have to say like, okay, I did this.
Yes.
And then you're pushing the button saying you did. But there is a very specific task tied to pushing that button.
Yes, that is so well said. That's exactly it. Yeah. It's not just a mark complete for
like, okay, I understand
this. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's actually tied to a specific action.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I think, again, I think this can be so easy in terms of just putting the text, like you have the video, just put the text below it with the button right next to it saying, this is what it means to be complete with this lesson. Once you've done this, then you can click the button. Right. And so it's I think that's the really subtle nuance. I think that you and I both do, Susan, that's different than just like the craze of the logistical mark complete instead of the actual learning mark complete.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like so many courses could be made like 90% better if they just added like a little checklist by the buttons that said, don't push the button until you've done this, this, and this.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I 100% agree with you.
Make it so much better.
Yeah.
There you go. Go and take that tip and go and do it.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of people want to be able to get away with like in their video, they've told them to do it. Right. But I think, everybody learns different ways. We have, and some people, they might be watching the video and they might know, okay, this is how I'm held accountable. But what you're doing is you're imposing what's called cognitive load, right? So you're forcing the customer to remember what they saw in order to know, okay, how am I being held accountable for the thing, right? So I then you're like, go back and rewatch the video, or I just need to hopefully have a good memory, or, so, and it's so unnecessary. Just write the text. If you said it in the video, just put it in the text form. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Yeah. We're only 2 of these in. This is good stuff.
All right. So this is the next one. And unfortunately, we have all been abused by this one so badly. And this is another one where I wish I could have like a little picket fence dude being like, don't abuse. Do this with love. So this is where we have to submit something to show it. So some of the ways that I think are really good that we're seeing is like, go out to Facebook, post the thing that you're supposed to do, copy the URL, come back here, paste the URL, and then say that, like you're showing proof that you did it. Yeah. Now, are you like literally showing proof? No, but the system, the reason why this is called system guided is the system is doing a check to be like, does the thing that they're submitting look and structured like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
www.facebook.com, blah, blah,
Yeah.
And then there's a system that says ding or nah. Yeah.
And so tell us the way that you would be abusing this.
Yeah. The way that we're abused by this is our traditional education system. So this is where I'm going to have somebody take a quiz and they have to remember the things I said in the video. Again, it's all head stuff. And especially as like adults, this doesn't matter as much anymore. Rote memory doesn't matter as much. So if you're doing a quiz to be like, I want to make sure you got it right. Like, do you remember the definition of this word? Or do you remember, when I was talking about this, can you explain what this concept means? Right? Like sometimes that has its place, but by and large, especially when I'm just trying to focus on behavioral change, I think it's a form of abuse. It's like brings us back to grade school, where it's like rote memory. We have to pass tests that mean nothing, that aren't actually in the reality of the behavior we're trying to do. So I am really like super cautious whenever we start talking with any of the clients that are like, let's test their knowledge. Oh my gosh, like chills up the back of my spine, it's fine. It's like, no, we're not testing your knowledge. We're helping to encourage and support a behavior change. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just like thinking about that, like just common sense wise, if you put something like that into your course, just psychologically, it just is like puts you, even if it's like a super easy, like 2-question quiz and it's multiple choice and like the other wrong answers are like completely out there, obviously wrong. Just psychologically, it's like, oh, just the word quiz, like, oh, I have to take a quiz. Oh, I'm being tested. It like that like shuts people down. And now for some people, your course is no longer enjoyable.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
Now, some learning theorist people out there might say that when I learn something and then you ask me about it, it helps to reinforce the learning in order for me to actually do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And at a really high level, this is true. But to your point, I think just like in the last one where we said, remember what I said and go do it, and it imposed what's called cognitive load, this is imposed emotional load, right? So like, just like you said, like we have been tormented as, a lot of us in our elementary, secondary, primary, collegiate, programs where it's like testing and holding us accountable for getting a good grade on the test, right, is kind of emotionally scarring for a lot of people. Yeah. And there's some pretty deep feelings of inadequacy associated with testing. And so I think exactly like the way you preface it, right? So if it's truly important for them to understand a concept, like great example, I would love somebody to understand the guide system, right? But I'm not going to be like, hey, please define what a self-guided system is, right? Like that would just backfire. Instead, it's like, go show examples, describe what this is, like go like make a system on your own that, like it's the applied behavioral aspect that I'm really wanting to understand, not can you just repeat what I just said like a monkey,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And then the submitting something to show you did it. A couple of things that you've mentioned, one of them, a couple of ways that we are doing this. So it's a system thing and not a you're getting emailed by all of your students and you have to go like deal with all the emails, right? Is like, it's totally automated. So you had mentioned like they might be going and posting it in a Facebook group. This is how Catherine Jones's CF Design School is heavily based on this. If every time you complete a challenge, go and post that you did it in the Facebook group, and then come back and like post the URL to that inside of the membership area. She has like a little pop-up box so that you can submit it. Now on hers, I don't know if it's still this way, but it was where they were manually checking it on the back end before they were saying, okay, you've earned your badge. But we can make it automated, which is what, we're currently
you guys have done.
It's like just the system recognizes. And then we just, at that point, we just assume like it's kind of the honor system, but we have a way that we can verify, like, did they actually post it where we wanted them to post it, or did they just put a random URL in here just to get it done? We can check that. And then the other thing is that we may be asking them to like have a written response of some sort where it makes sense. So like in a lot of courses, usually you start out like with mindset stuff, right? And you want people to dig into their like, why are you even going through this course? Their why, right? Yeah. And you want them to like document it. And so they may, if it's someone who loves to write with paper and pencil or pen, they may have a journal that they write the stuff down on. But one way that you could have them submitting something to show they did it is just to let them type it right in the membership area and submit it that way. That way it's like there in the system, it saves it for them. They can see it every time they log in. And so that's another way that you can get them to submit to show that they did it. It's not necessarily for you, the course owner, to see that they did it and like to check their work like a teacher. It's more of an accountability thing. Like, hey, we've provided a way for you to actually go and you have a place to put this. And by doing that, by putting this in that place, whether it be a Facebook group or this input box, it's like, oh, okay, I have like, there's a clear step that I need to take to complete this thing. And it's for their own like accountability and their own sense of accomplishment. Like, okay, I did this. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. I love that. And the way you guys are doing on that front too is super cool. Just to shout out.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So then now we're starting to get into a little bit more of that human. And again, that's like the coach determines if I did it well, right? And you want to reserve this because it is a delight factor or it's a expectation in a high ticket program. So these are ones where I've seen it done really well is if like the entrepreneur has the program and then they have coaches, and that the coaches basically it's like you submit it for review and then the coaches can give feedback via Voxer, but they give the feedback to the whole group so everyone can learn. That is one that I've seen where it's just done really well. Another one is so I was working with a group that, and I don't know if they actually brought this to, because we were talking about a couple ideas, but the idea was they are responsible to actually like give people a certification for, they run a karate school, and they're responsible to give, they don't want a system to give people black belts. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's not good.
That has to be a human verified thing.
Yeah. So like in the lower belts, right, it was okay to have some systems in place, right, where it's really just a matter of like reps and repetitions. And if they could show it and the system could detect that show, then it's more than fine. But once they started to get into like the middle range belts or the upper belts, they actually had to like submit their moves via video. It would get reviewed by the instructors, and then they would be able to get invited and to get the final certification. But it was, again, it's those where it's like the risk is higher, quality control is important, the delight factor is really important, because it doesn't scale, but it does, it's the human to human thing, which you just can't beat.
It doesn't scale, but if you reserve it for the like very end of your program or the very high investment part of your offers, not everyone gets to those things. Right. Like unfortunately there's a lot of people that just don't make it to the end. And so it's not like, oh, well, I've got like 1,000 people enrolling into this thing. That doesn't mean 1,000 of them are all going to get to the end of this all at the same time.
Right. Which, this really brings an interesting question, Susan, that, I think you and I both have slightly different ways of doing this, and we have some similarities in it, but it's like, So we have, in every great learning experience, there's always two parts of the equation, right? There's the participants going through the learning experience, and then there's the entrepreneur and their company that's trying to manage, fulfill, support the learners, right? And so it's like on some of these, if you are wanting to add a nurture campaign, or if you are wanting to add, a human management thing, right? It's like I know both you and I have created systems where we're providing that like dashboard or that system, whether it be in ActiveCampaign or in Airtable, or right, like we're providing that dashboard so that the person who's managing the learning experience can engage in meaningful ways. And so I'm really curious in 2.0, because right now in ClickFunnels that really doesn't exist. I mean, we can go into the people and we can see that they stayed on the page for longer than 1 second and it's marked as 100%, right? Like that's it. Like we
can see the percentage of lessons they have viewed.
Yeah.
Is where we're at.
Also, and then if the videos are streamed out of 2.0, that also gives us another measure of like, the percentage of the video that they completed, or, So I really am it seems like 2.0, they're really talking a lot about the analytics side. So I really am hopeful that the whole administration aspect of these learning experiences is better in 2.0, or at least there's even a space for it. Because right now we're making spaces for that to happen, because it's not out of the box.
Right. And I'd say, like we've talked about this before, that we of course think that they're going to add in some features that are not available in 1.0 right now, but they're probably not going to add in all of the things, all of the capabilities of doing the things that we have talked about today. It's very unlikely, I think, that they're going to have ways to be able to implement all of the examples we have given you. They'll probably have ways to do a version, or like a very base minimum version of these things, like pushing a button. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to have a way to push a button to say you completed the lesson, because that brings them up to the level of all the other platforms. Right now they're kind of behind. That brings them up to that level. But they're not going to have like what we've talked about with being able to submit custom information, like letting people submit URLs to show that they did it in the system, like tracking that, like. And you brought up that having a way to view that information as the owner of that course, to see like, okay, but if we're tracking all of this stuff, where do we actually look at all of this information, and why, great, we're tracking it, but then like what happens after that? Well, like you said, we are creating ways for the course owners to be able to view that information, even down to like, once someone has reached a milestone, you'll be alerted. You will know that they have reached that point. If someone hasn't logged in for 2 weeks, you could be alerted to that. So we're going way deeper than just like tracking when someone has gone through a lesson or not gone through a lesson, which I think is so powerful in being able to actually serve your students, your clients, at the highest level that you can.
Yeah, and nurture them in that process. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And I was just going to say something totally slipped my mind. It was, again, I think you and I love nerding out on this, but for the folks that are really like, all right, we're supposed to be talking about 2.0. What is all this? I think that like, if you take home nothing else, the thing for 2.0 is that when you migrate all of your content from 1.0 to 2.0, you are going to have to touch every single piece of content again. So if you do nothing else to make your course or your program learning experience better, just add a little bit of text next to that mark complete, so they know exactly what they're trying to get complete, like what they are marking complete. And that'll just do leaps and bounds in terms of helping the whole learning experience. So that's, it's an opportunity, I think, to kind of, it's kind of like moving sucks, but you get to touch all the stuff that you have, and you get to realize like, oh, I could let go a lot of this stuff and clean house, it's kind of,
exactly. And I think like, looking at this delay, for some of us, it's a delay. For some of you, you were planning on waiting anyway. But using this time to be doing these tasks is going to allow you to move things over to 2.0 so much faster and more efficient. You'll be able to move it more efficiently, because I genuinely feel like once people start moving their membership areas, they're going to like totally get lost in what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So you that are watching these videos right now of us talking about these things, you're going to be ahead of the game, especially if you're going and like doing the work and like re-evaluating your stuff ahead of time. Put a spreadsheet together and map out what your course looks like right now. Like what's the lessons, list all the lessons, and then just have, okay, what are the things that I'm actually asking them to do in this lesson? And then use that to make your checklist that Andrea was just talking about. But yeah, using this time to go and do those things is going to set you up for so much easier migration, and also creating a better product for your customers in the end.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And if nothing else, just being, I think anytime that you're more intentional in the experience that you're creating, it ends up being better.
Yeah.
Some way. It's felt in some way, but you're wonderful humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's it. We went through all of the slides. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did. I think, yeah, the rest is just examples. So
awesome. Yeah. We have used our time wisely today.
Yes, likewise.
Okay, guys.
I would say let us know too, for the people who are watching, like let us know, because I think our plan is basically until 2.0 comes out, we'll continue to kind of love on you guys in terms of some of the templates and the processes that we use in order to make these learning experiences what they, the best they possibly can make. So that's your agree, Susan? Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I feel like this episode was gold. So for those that are new to this, the ideas of what we're sharing, like this was mind-blowing information to me, 6 months ago when Andrea started sharing this stuff with me. So you definitely, if you love this, let us know, and we'll keep doing things like this leading up to 2.0 coming out. And then when 2.0 comes out, we will shift gears and get a little more like tactical on like, okay, here's what we're learning in 2.0. Here's the things we're seeing you can do. Definitely let us know that you like this stuff if you want us to keep doing it. And I was just going to say, we probably are not going to be going live next week, because in the States, it is Happy Thanksgiving for us. So yes. Do you agree, Andrea?
Yeah, I think okay, so. We'll probably just observe
spend time
the
with your families.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks, and maybe by some miracle we'll have 2.0, but we're not holding our breath at this point. We're aiming for January, I think.
Yep, I think so.
All right. See you later.
Okay, bye.